Yo, my name's Taffy, and I'm gonna tell you the story of a side character who was betrayed by his entire family, then lost said entire family, including his friends, and became physically and psychologically scarred for the rest of his life. One intro, alright? Now this character comes from the series Invincible, which has been my favourite comic for the past 2 years, and like a lot of people, I was introduced to it by the animated series on Amazon Prime, which is absolute heat, and if you haven't seen it, why haven't you? Season 2 wrapped up a few months ago, and it introduced one of the most unforgettable characters in the Invincible universe to date, Bulletproof. You know, he was a character who kind of started off as a filler hero that eventually developed into being one of the most unlucky and unfortunate characters ever. And in this series there's quite a lot of unfortunate characters, but this man just can't catch a break ever. Bulletproof's case is so special because not only is he extremely unfortunate, but he tries his best to turn these bad events into positive outcomes that can impact others and himself if possible. However, he not only ends up hurting those around him, but it ends up leaving him with a permanent reminder that he can't always turn bad situations into good ones, but that he needs to face these issues head on properly and learn from them. Now if you aren't caught up with the comic, I highly recommend you doing so because spoilers, what do you think this is? It's a fantastic read, and even though I know how the story ends, I think I enjoyed season 2 even more than I would have spoiler free. Also, this video is gonna get kinda insane and a little dark, so to keep our heads on straight, I decided to move locations this episode somewhere more peaceful and, nice rather than my, regular dark bro cave. But yeah, I don't know what I'm waiting for, I might as well tell you who Bulletproof is. Bulletproof is a character who was introduced quite early into the Invincible series, as a superhero who was hired as one of the replacements for the Guardians of the Globe. However, in the beginning he was never really developed that far, so we never really got to see his alter ego or much of his motivations. He was introduced wearing one of Art Rosenbaum's suits that Mark had turned down, and even has an old concept name for the Invincible character that was scrapped by the comics creators. And for quite a while, Bulletproof was kind of just a mystery, but not one that readers were like dying to solve or anything. But in issue 86, that's when everything changed. You see, during this time, Mark had been put out of commission due to him being infected with the Viltrumite killing virus. I mean, he didn't die obviously because he's the main character, but he was put in a coma by the virus, which ended up leading to clients he usually saves leave his service. So to help out, Bulletproof took on the Invincible mantle whilst Mark was AFK. This is one of the first major times we actually got to see a deeper side of him, where he shows that he's willing to help out people just to be helpful, rather than just being a superhero who enjoys the fame and thrill of it. But about 10 issues into him pretending to be invincible, not only do we get to see Bulletproof's hard life outside of being a superhero, but we also get to see his tragic origin story. Bulletproof's real name is Zandale Randolph, and he was born with an identical twin brother named Tyrone. Now they both loved each other very much despite the fact that they were almost completely different people. Tyrone was always good with technology and science and, great education, whereas Zandale is an artist and is a lot more creative. Hence why Tyrone would always say that he was the builder and Zandale was the decorator. And if it wasn't enough living in Tyrone's shadow due to his brilliance, their parents didn't hide the fact that Tyrone was their favourite. Eventually their paths strayed a bit as Tyrone became a world-class scientist, graduated from university early and got a job working for the military, while Zandale continued to make art and do his own thing. However, throughout their lives, Zandale never resented or hated his brother, not even one bit. He thought Tyrone was brilliant and was proud of his success. All Zandale really wanted was for him and his brother to be treated equally by his parents. However, Tyrone's biggest dream ended up also being his biggest flaw, and this was the addiction to getting superpowers. One night, the brothers were eating dinner at Tyrone's house, and Tyrone just wouldn't stop telling Zandale about how he'd cracked the code and figured out how to get superpowers. And before Zandale could even register what was going on, he felt woozy and just blacked out. He then woke up in a dark lab, restrained to a massive machine, only to see his brother scowling back at him. Tyrone, what happened? I only had one drink. I'm sorry bro, I laced your 40 with Finn. What? Look bro, my paper mache volcano was due next week for the science fair, so I needed somebody to test it on. You dig? You could've just asked, you didn't need to spike my drink. Tyrone then reveals that he's going to use Zandale as his guinea pig to test his breakthrough in getting superpowers. He said that Zandale was perfect for the job, his perfect genetic double, who hadn't done anything special or important with his life, as if Zandale was born for this purpose. Damn! However, this experiment did not go Tyrone's way at all. It did end up giving Zandale powers, but it destroyed everything else in the lab, including Tyrone. But despite all the horrible things Tyrone said and did to Zandale, he was absolutely distraught and mourned his brother. But the explosion left Tyrone's remains vaporized and completely turned to dust. He knew his parents wouldn't believe him if he told them what Tyrone had become or what he tried to do to him, so Zandale did what anyone else would. He dressed up like Tyrone and would fake being him to his parents.
Huh?
Every once in a while, he would visit his parents pretending to be Tyrone, and he'd use Tyrone's military work as an excuse as to why he wouldn't see them so often. And for the first time in his life, Zandale got to experience the true love of his parents without the judgment or scrutiny or comparison that he would get to Tyrone. But the downside to this was that his parents' favoritism has never been clearer to him now than ever, since he gets to see both sides when he also visits them being himself. Zandale only passingly would use his powers if he was ever nearby a situation that could use his help, and eventually he became Bulletproof. But instead of using this good thing he was given as a way to cash in on his parents' love as Zandale, he told them that Tyrone is bulletproof. Why? But the reason why is because it would be another reason for them to believe why he was so busy all the time. If it wasn't for Zandale's partner Carla, he may not have been able to keep up with this crazy scheme for long. It must have been so physically and emotionally draining to put up with this facade for so long. And ironically, we learn Zandale's origin story at the exact same time as his parents, who are obviously like, what the f***? But they also completely refuse to believe the truth, or at least consider the possibility of it. They scream at him, saying that he was obviously jealous of Tyrone, and that Zandale killed him, and that they're going to go to the police and make sure he'll pay for it. His mom says that they'll see Zandale fry for this, so in retaliation, Carla smashes a frying pan through the skull of Zandale's mom. Uh-oh. Immediately, Carla tries to say that she didn't mean to, which, come on bro, that's just a lie. Since we literally see her walking off screen to get the frying pan, but before she can finish what she's saying, Zandale's dad wakes up Chris Breezy and starts attacking Carla. I'm sorry, that joke was in such poor taste. And in the moment, Zandale doesn't exactly think about how he's, a superhuman. And when he pulls his dad off Carla, he ends up snapping his neck by accident. And then we see Zandale, still just as invincible by the way, staging their deaths to look like a car crash. His friends, colleagues, and fellow heroes give their condolences at the funeral. And finally, Carla and Zandale sit alone and give each other that "we're cooked" look. And then the next page cuts to one of the funniest scenes in the entire book like nothing happened. So for the next handful of issues, Zandale kind of just keeps using the invincible suit and runs around pretending to be him. Now for context, Mark in the previous issues caused a lot of problems by signing with a very conflicted and controversial anti-hero called Dinosaurus, which led to the deaths of many innocents, and whilst I'd love to talk about that, that is definitely a video for another time. But this ended up causing him to become pretty unpopular with the rest of the superheroes, and Bulletproof is the only person who steps up to defend him. He kind of self-inserts his own problems into his argument, as he talks about how Mark made a mistake, and how he'll live with this for the rest of his life trying to fix it. Then we don't see Zandale for another 12 issues, until Robot starts a new world order trying to fix the many problems and issues in the world, based on, his logic. Only problem is that Robot is so set on doing this his way, that he refuses to consult with anybody who may defy him, so instead he just fucking kills them. Now he strands Mark in another dimension because he doesn't want to kill someone he considers a friend, but he also knows Mark will never stand for his plan, hence why he did this. But the other heroes who defy Robot go into hiding so they can try to figure out a way to stop him. However, Robot just crashes their party and finds them with the help of an informant, that informant being Bulletproof. Now you're of course probably thinking, well what the hell, he was once the only person who sided with Mark when all the heroes scrutinized him for being responsible for thousands of deaths. And now Bulletproof is siding with someone who separated Mark from his pregnant wife that Bulletproof also was once employed by. Now whilst Robot's methods to seizing control are definitely wrong and with its flaws, the result of Robot's new world order is undeniably better for the world. Not only are global crime rates at an all-time low, but so are unemployment and homelessness rates. So you could see it as Zandale trying to do as he once said, living his life doing everything he can to make up for his past actions. However, the Immortal makes a very good point about Robot and his methods. He says that when using logic as your only way of dealing with the world's issues, then it might be pretty easy to deal with stuff such as crime or homelessness. However, what about when, logically, the population gets overcrowded because there's too many old people, or because logically, the prisons are getting filled? Immortal argues that whilst the results are good now, it will only lead to problems later on, and it's inevitable, hence why the world needs to stay a somewhat messy place. Now this is pretty heavy stuff to be saying and also quite morbid, but the Immortal has been alive for literal centuries. He not only saw multiple world leaders go by and screw things up, he also happened to be in their shoes multiple times. I mean, he was literally Abraham Lincoln. Now this information could have been quite useful to Zandale, but Zandale isn't invincible. Well, I mean, he kind of is, but Zandale isn't the main character is what I mean. So Mark is the one who Immortal is telling all this to. But Mark ends up leaving the Earth and allows Robot to continue his plot in order to try and keep the peace and protect his family. But the Immortal does not let this slide. He allows himself to be caught by Zandale and turned into the prison holding all the heroes. And he ends up blowing himself up with Zandale at point blank range. This causes all the heroes that Zandale put away, his former friends and colleagues, to escape, whilst he laid there completely deformed, looking like a black Harvey Dent. So Robot teleports in and sees Zandale laying there in shambles. He sees Zandale's new look and doesn't actually seem fazed by this, and is like, "Oh, that? Don't worry man, we'll get you a new face, it's on the house." But instead of being gassed that he'll get his face back, Zandale instead says that he deserves this. But not because of his actions in turning in the other heroes. Zandale still believes that siding with Robot was the right thing to do. However, he decides to stay disfigured because he thinks that it reflects who he is on the inside, kind of like a punishment from fate for what he did to his parents. Now, for the remainder of the Invincible series, Zandale doesn't really show up too often due to him being a side character and all, but that was kind of the closure to his story. He does continue to follow Robot to the end of his reign and essentially becomes his right-hand man, but in doing so, they end up doing more bad things together in their plot to fix the grand scheme of things. So, whilst I definitely don't think that Zandale is a perfectly written character, I think he undeniably has one of the saddest stories in the Invincible comic. Of course, Mark was ultimately betrayed by Omni-Man at the beginning of the series, but Zandale's entire immediate family turned on him. If it weren't for Carla, he would be completely alone. I'd like to believe that after Robot was defeated, Zandale was pardoned as he did what he believed would save the world. And unlike Robot, he didn't try to kill his colleague before they could say no. So yeah, that's the tragic tale of Bulletproof. A man who was continuously punished through his life for doing what he believed was the right thing. Well, I mean, except for killing his parents and playing off as a car crash, I don't know if that was the right thing to do.